We're live this time.
Are we live right now?
We are live.
All right, cool. All right, sweet. All right, good afternoon. It is Monday, April 2nd, 2018, in case you're wondering. Today we have Jesse Nunez here co-hosting. Jesse is the founder of Elite Amateur Fight League, so we'll get a little update on that and an overview. And we also have a really great guest today is James Chapman. He's the director of entrepreneurship at Quicken Loans, their community investment fund. So he has a big announcement coming up for a $1 million prize that's going to be happening in the next couple weeks. So please stay tuned today on the breakdown. All right, cool. So Jesse, you've been on before, but James is here. Probably some new faces out there. Like, what exactly is it that you do?
Sure. So the Elite Amateur Fight League is basically the NCAA level of mixed martial arts. Think of the Final Four basketball tournament, but for mixed martial arts, right? It's the best amateurs from across the country competing on a high level and on television. Mm-hmm. So there was a giant hole in a multi-billion-dollar market. The UFC, everybody knows who they are, and the sport grew so quickly. No one developed that platform for those amateurs. We saw a whole pitch at 10 BC, shot a concept season, and lo and behold, here we are. We're in season 2 coming up this summer with some of the best teams in mixed martial arts, putting teams into the league and competing in front of a national audience.
Super cool. So you're building a community of amateur fighters and also people who like to the MMA community. You're working with them in a different way that's never been done before. And our guest today, James Chapman. Welcome, James. James is out in Detroit building communities out in Detroit. So what is a director of entrepreneurship at Quicken Loans? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
I'm not exactly sure what it is or what I do on a day-to-day basis. Some days, honestly, sometimes it's just whatever they ask me to do. But in a nutshell, we're trying to help start, grow, and scale the entrepreneurship ecosystem in Detroit. And we do that in a number of different ways, and we want to get people plugged in with business planning programs. We want to get them plugged in with the resources that we have available throughout the FOC from a vendor and procurement spends side of the house. And then we're also investing money into Detroit-based companies and those willing to relocate through Detroit Demo Day. So that's my work. So
it's a lot. So So Detroit, how do you go into a city and say, we're going to take this over, and we want people to go and try entrepreneurship. We want people to go and start small businesses. Like, what does that look like? We've kind of seen it here in Chicago a little bit. And I've been down to Columbus. They're having a big entrepreneurial boom right now as well. And how do you go and engage a community like this and say, go to WeWork or go to Tech Town or go wherever? What does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
The entrepreneurship ecosystem in Detroit is really vibrant. You have a lot of folks who are starting things. There's a ton of makers in Detroit. Detroiters are very good at making things and very good with their hands. And there's a lot of grittiness. There's a lot of rich history in Detroit around entrepreneurship. And so really what we're trying to do is figure out where we best fit in this entrepreneurship ecosystem. There are a lot of players that are out there. You mentioned a few of them with Tech Town. There's Invest Detroit. The list really goes on with some of the players that are out there trying to help people be able to go from idea to action and be able to take those ideas to scale. And so, we're just one piece of a greater ecosystem, and we're, constantly trying to figure out the best way that we fit in and how can we best utilize the resources that we have available and the human capital that we have available to get it plugged in and activated into the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you go? What is your advice to somebody who's trying to go from idea to action?
Testing. I think, one thing that I've seen is a lot of entrepreneurs, they fall in love with their solution more than they fall in love with their problem. And so, what we really encourage people to do is to fall in love with the problem and test the solution a lot. Because once you, test that solution and, get it out there into potential customers or people that you trust, then you'll be able to produce the best possible product that you can. And, that takes time and it takes a lot of patience, but it's going to be worth it in the end, because what you don't want to do is skip steps, and you don't want put yourself in a position where you came up with a solution, a product or service that's not the best way to serve your customer.
That's good advice.
Out of all the places in the country, how did this end up in Detroit? How did this main focus end up in the Detroit metro area?
I'm new to Detroit, but, the entrepreneurship services from the family of companies is not a new thing. Prior to me going to Detroit, I've been in Detroit 2 years, but prior to me coming up to Detroit, they were operating an incubator and accelerator called Wisdom. Wisdom was providing seed capital, $25,000 for tech ideas. And exchange for anywhere between 7 to 8% equity, just to really kind of activate that side of things within the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And Wisdom was a great thing. They just realized that there are other ways that we can help support entrepreneurs in Detroit and in Cleveland. And what we really wanted to do was find ways to support folks who weren't just in the ideation stage, and also find ways to support folks who weren't just in the technology industry. But the work has always been around. It's been around before I got there, and it'll still be around, after I leave.
Very cool. So this might be just like a Midwestern thing for us, and you're from Tennessee, but you've been in Detroit a couple of years. Yeah. What opportunities or what areas are you seeing in Detroit, where you're seeing startups pop up? Because Chicago, we see a lot in agriculture, ag tech, ed tech, fintech, fight tech. But yes, a lot of the good old buzzwords, But you're not seeing a lot of consumer apps or the things you might see on the coasts. What kinds of things are you seeing in Detroit, or what trends are you seeing, maybe from your perspective, about the Midwest in particular?
Some things that I'm seeing in Detroit are really dynamic entrepreneurs that are making great products. So a lot of product-based companies. One that comes to my mind is Empowerment Plant. They make the coats for the homeless, where it's huge coat, but then it also transforms into a sleeping bag. They've been doing a really great job. The Lip Bar. They make organic beauty products, primarily lipstick. And she started off making this lipstick. Her name is Melissa Butler, out of her kitchen. And now she's in a number of stores in Target and other places and things of that nature. So, that's probably the biggest thing that I've been seeing is a lot of just really, really brilliant entrepreneurs that are launching and scaling product-based companies.
Cool. And Empowerment Plant, I think that's then it's also this. They make these coats for homeless people, and they're also created by homeless people too, right? Don't they offer jobs? I think I saw a YouTube video or something about it.
Yeah. There's a jobs component to it where they try to hire and empower disadvantaged people to be able to put the coats together. And all
Yeah. That's so cool. Let's see. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this demo day. So.
Yeah.
Is this year 1, year 2? How long have you been doing?
Year two.
And what's the stipulations? What's how do I get them?
I'm interested, because I want to pitch you lead amateur fund league. Tell me what I need to do to do that.
Yeah, $1 million up for grabs. Entrepreneurs can throw their name in the hat, throw their name in the ring for to get a share of that $1 million, anywhere between $25,000 and $300,000 for their business. We will be deploying those funds by way of grants, 0% interest loans, and convertible notes, which is a equity tool. And really, all you need to do is go to DetroitDemoDay.com to be able to figure out all of the details. But as long as you're a company that's based in Detroit or willing to relocate to Detroit, you're eligible, and you have to be outside of the ideation stage. So you have to have an actual business. You have to be ready for customers today. Mm-hmm. You can't just still be, thinking about how to launch your business. But other than that, anybody can apply, and it's industry agnostic. So we want makers, we want techies, we want people who have service-based products, all of those things.
Sweet.
Very cool.
So you're going to hate this next part, but so in the spirit of pitch competitions,
oh boy,
Jesse's doing a pitch competition tomorrow.
I am.
And we were supposed to do this after the breakdown today, but I was thinking, why not have Jesse try his pitch out right now and get some live feedback?
All right, I will do the elevator pitch in the interest of time.
We got plenty of time. Let's hear it.
All right.
Let's hear it.
All right, so I'm taking it you're a sports fan. You're in Detroit. You're from Cleveland, right?
Tennessee.
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Yeah.
But
I'm a sports fan.
right, we all know our favorite sports athletes, but I want you to stop and think where you first saw that athlete compete. And I guarantee you the answer is probably the NCAA. Right? Okay. So you've got these amazing athletes. We met Michael Jordan at North Carolina, right? We met Joe Montana at Notre Dame, or wherever our favorite athletes competed at as amateurs. Well, I'm here to tell you that there's a multi-billion-dollar industry that doesn't have that level of competition. And it's the fastest growing sport in the world, and that's mixed martial arts. I'm the founder and creator of the Elite Amateur Fight League. We are the only established path for amateur fighters to get exposure and experience to become a legitimate professional athlete. For the first time, they have an amazing platform to compete against each other on a national platform in front of a television audience. And we're doing that at the Elite Amateur Fight League. We're building a 32-team, state versus state, team versus team, amateur MMA league culminating in national championship, similar to the March Madness basketball tournament, but for MMA. That's who we are. That's what we do. We need you to be a fan, and we need people to think of MMA as a national sport and think of the Elite Amateur Fight League as a national platform for all of amateur MMA. Woo! That was the abbreviated version.
Good job.
Yeah. There you go. Any thoughts? Did he win?
I don't know if he won or not.
Yeah. I didn't get into the money. Yeah, I can get into the money later. We'll talk later.
Yeah, he had a really good pitch. Things that that I encourage people to do whenever they're crafting their pitch is to start with a story, and he did that, and then end with a call to action, and he did that as well. And so, yeah, pretty solid pitch.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. That was good. So talk to me about what gets you excited? What is I watched your TED Talks, culture of selflessness, for example, like that. What is that? What drives you specifically?
Yeah. So my TEDx was given back in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I don't even know how many years ago it's been now since I did that thing. But it was around creating a culture of selflessness. Essentially, if everybody has that mindset of selflessness, then we it's the old saying, you're only as strong as the weakest link, right? Mm-hmm. And so essentially it's all about, picking up people who are underneath you and trying to make other people stronger so that your entire team is strong, or your entire city is strong, or your entire business is strong, and things of that nature. So in order to do that, it can't just be a focus on yourself. You have to focus on, other people as well, and you have to lead with that. And, that's one of the things that really just drives me is, how can I set trends, and how can I lead the charge for people to be able to give back. And give back, you don't necessarily have to do that with money. You can do that with your time. You can do that with your expertise. You can do that with your encouragement, whatever the case may be. And so, I'm always looking to make other people better, just because, I feel like the only reason why I've had any amount of success that I may potentially have is because other people have invested in me, poured time and energy and resources into me. And so, I strongly believe that the greatest form of capital is human capital. And, that's what kind of motivates me and keeps me going. Because I know that it'll always come back around, and somebody's going to continue to help me with, when I'm in a time of need, or teach me something that I don't know, and things of that nature. So that's kind of the whole thought process behind, creating a culture of selflessness. Mm-hmm. And, I would say that is one of the things that drives me is, seeing other people succeed and knowing that I may have somehow had a hand in someone else's success.
That's awesome. Any other questions you're thinking of? Do you have a team in Detroit?
We don't have a team in Detroit, and actually we're looking at Cleveland, because Cleveland is the home of the undisputed heavyweight champion in the UFC, Stipe Miocic. So we're looking at Cleveland to possibly bring a team in season 4 or 5, but we just landed Nevada, Team Couture, Jackson Wink, Team Alpha Male, American Top Team. But we'd love to get a little bit more Midwest representation, because there's a ton of great fighters out in Detroit, there's a ton of great fighters out in Cleveland, and right now they're not represented in this league yet.
Right. Do you fight MMA, James?
No, I don't fight MMA. I try to avoid fighting at all costs. You know, I'll defend myself if I need to. But other than that, you know, I try to keep my hands to myself.
Yeah, and the funniest part is these fighters are some of the nicest guys in the world, right? Yeah. You would think that these are aggressive, you know, rough and tough guys, but man, some of the nicest guys I've ever met are MMA fighters. It's crazy.
They just flip a switch.
They just flip a switch. You know? They have that special talent.
No, I don't know.
Everybody's got one. Everybody's got
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, so every week we kind of go around the room and we do this thing called hacks, where we talk about like a tool or resource that we use that can improve your life from like an early stage entrepreneurship standpoint. So something free or cool or relevant. What's something that you do or use, or something that you read maybe that you might want to tell people about?
Just to kind of help them from a personal development side of things. I have a pretty set routine every morning. I do the same thing every single morning, and I have it on my calendar to make sure that I stick to it. And I've got time slots available for each one of them. So, like, I literally give myself a certain amount of time to just roll around in bed, because I know I'm not going to get up immediately as soon as my alarm clock goes off. And then I give myself a certain amount of time to do prayer, meditation, and read scripture, then a certain amount of time to do stretching, push-ups, sit-ups, then a certain amount of time for meditation, a certain amount of time for to eat, you know, a certain amount of time to get dressed, and then I make sure that I'm out of the door by a certain time as well every morning. And so that, you know, starting your mornings off the right way helps you get into a better flow, and you're not all over the place once your mornings get going, which allows you to have a more productive day, is what I realized for myself. And then, like, another thing that I do from a work standpoint, so we're all hustlers and working all the time, right? So I usually do the more mindless things at night, so just like responding to emails, right? Like nothing creative at night, because I've already worked a full day and I'm tired. But then in the mornings, I start by like work. So it's like working in the business versus working on the business, right? Mm-hmm. I work in the business at night and I work on the business in the morning, because that's when my mind's fresh and I've got creativity going and all that kind of stuff, and I want to capture that.
Right.
I don't read books, which is a sucky thing to say and to admit. I just can't that's something I haven't been able to crack the code on, is how to force myself to sit down and actually read. But the last podcast that I picked out that I would recommend for folks if they want to dig into it is it's called We Study Billionaires. A really dope episode that I had listened to is tip 182. I think they're working out a book called The Compound Effect. It's really good. One of the things that I took away from that, they said in the podcast, is that every decision matters. Right, and so like when you think about it, every single decision that we've made or have not made has allowed us to be in this position that we currently are in, and then every decision that we'll make or will not make will determine where we go in the future, regardless of how big or small. And so when you start to look at your decisions that way, then, you know, that starts to, you know, you start to make a little bit different decisions, or at least think about things in a different way. So pretty good podcast if folks want to check that out.
Very cool. His morning regimen sounds a lot like boot camp, minus the rolling in bed and meditation. But that step-by-step morning, right?
Air Force is pretty,
wow, the Marine Corps is step-by-step. Push-ups, sit-ups, wake up, go to the bathroom, come back, and everything's timed. You know, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty militant, man, but it's effective for sure. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. What about you, Jesse?
I guess just good old-fashioned live networking for me, right? I was just at an event, and we launched a fight app to follow the fights and the fight card, and we had the announcer announce it over and over again, and nobody was using the app until we got out and started activating it ourselves by meeting people and finding people on their phones and getting them to download the app. Next thing you know, we got over 100, over 200 people using the app. So that good old face-to-face live engagement beats posts, it beats Facebook, it beats announcements, just getting out and doing the work and meeting people face-to-face and putting that product out there.
Yeah, I think that's so smart. I mean, we spend a lot of time trying to get in the mind of kind of like our customers, and I know there's a difference between the fight crowd and the app crowd. I mean, it's tied into the same experience, but there's a big difference between getting somebody to buy a ticket to a fight and then also somebody getting an app. So it takes, like, you know, testing, trial and error to go figure that out. And like that's so true, especially with apps. Like to get people to download apps is very challenging. Cool. My hack is not tangible either. It's, I mean, sort of, you know, not to say it's not tangible, but it's just saying no.
Like you said, it was tangible.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. Just saying no sometimes, and that might sound counterintuitive, but if you think about where you spend your energy and your time on a daily basis, sometimes you just have to say no. Whether sometimes it's to friends and toxic people or whatever. Sometimes it's just if you have 7 things you have to do this week and that 8th thing comes up, I get it. Like, it might be nice to say, yeah, I want to go to this event, but if it's not going to be helpful for your business, why are you doing it at all? And it's really hard to learn to say no, especially if you're a really, really A+ kind person. Like, I know us 3 are all, angels, but saying no. So my hack is just to think about where you're spending your time and how you're spending your time, and think about some areas and places in which you can maybe trim the fat, I guess you want to call it that, and get that calendar back. So, James, any last final advice or words for some early stage veteran entrepreneurs out there?
No, just this thing is a journey, and so don't be so hard on yourselves. We all have really high levels of expectations for ourselves, but just realize that we're better together for one. So if you don't have a team, surround yourself with a team of positive people that can kind of help you reach your goals, and then. Other than that, just continue to push forward, and be sure to always test every assumption, test everything that you are just certain that it's true. Test everything because it's going to make your product the best.
Sweet, awesome. Well, thank you, James. Last bit next week, our guest is Craig Cummings. You like this one? Craig's a Bunker Labs board member. He's also the founder of Moonshots Capital. They're a VC fund out of Austin, Texas. Craig's a phenomenal leader. He was a West Point graduate. It'll be a great show, probably most likely centered around how to fundraise and the things that VCs and angel investors look for when they're investing in early stage startups. So stay tuned for that. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next week.
See you.
Thanks, James.